Here I am, one of my favorite places in the fiber world, Picasso's Moon, which you've probably heard me say things about before on the blog. And this morning, I got a hold of Deb, who's sitting here in the middle of all of her wonderful stuff, and we're going to ask her a few questions. And this is going to be the live recorded interview with Deb Lambert. Hi, Deb.
Hi.
How are you this morning?
We're good. We're in our second day of the Fiber Festival and everything's great.
The festival's been great. I have to tell you, you guys worked so hard and everything has come together perfectly and everybody's having such a great time. And thanks so much for taking the time to sit down with me this morning.
You're welcome. Well, I couldn't have done it without Kim Perkins. She's definitely the brainchild behind the whole Fiber Festival and the organization. And she's also a very talented bat maker, so it's interesting just to watch her create her bats in front of a crowd of people and everyone oohing and awing over her, color selections.
Now, Kim is Bats in the Belfry, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I spun a couple of those yesterday and I loved it.
And this is her alter ego because she owns Elysian Fields. And if you've ever come to Sarasota, it is the store to go visit when you come because she brought New Age to Sarasota 22 years ago, she and her partner, and it is the coolest store.
It is a beautiful store. We always visit there when I come down. Okay, so without further ado,
yes.
Let's find out about you and Picasso's Moon. So first, just tell us a little bit about your own, what I call fiber arts journey.
Well, I have been a knitter since I was 18. I put myself through college, knitting, doing finishing work, teaching classes, and that's how I put myself through college. And knitting has always, it's something that I've always gone back to. I did finishing work when my children were little to make extra money at home. Once my children started leaving the nest, we bought an antique shop. I got really bored after I painted all the walls and didn't have anything else to do, so I started my knitting again. Then I was like, what do I do with my stuff? So I started selling them, and I started buying yarn, and one baby step at a time, the antique shop turned into a yarn shop, which now, because of spinning, because I was introduced to Lexi's book, Intertwined, 4 years ago, I started spinning in my little yarn shop. I feel the best description for it now is it's a fiber boutique because it's just exploded into another world that I just didn't know was there.
So you actually opened Picasso's Moon when?
10 years ago.
Okay.
As an antique shop, and it's been a full-fledged yarn fiber boutique for 8 years now.
I see.
So it didn't take long to jump off the antique train and go into the fiber. I think I've been destined to be knitting or to have yarn in my hands since I learned when I was 18.
Wow. And you sell wheels, correct?
I do sell wheels, yes.
Now, one of the things that people often want to know about is they're either buying their first wheel or they're maybe thinking about buying a different wheel. What kind of tips or lessons have you learned along the way for potential buying purchase decisions?
I've bought a lot of wheels. I've experimented with a lot of wheels. I've been lucky enough to go to SAF in Asheville every October, and you get to sit down at every wheel out there to test drive them. Wheels are like a car. They're like a bicycle. You have to find the one that fits you the best. And I, of course, have my favorites, and I have ones that I like to use and I have no problems with, and then there's some that just scare me and I can't use them. But I think that wheels are, whatever wheel you learn how to spin on is the wheel for you. I mean, and then you're going to graduate. I don't know of any spinner that has only one wheel. I think we have a tendency to collect wheels for this reason, for that reason, so that we have that kind of wheel for what we want to make at that time. Just like knitting needles.
Absolutely.
Tools are everything. Tools are everything in any craftsman situation.
So, coming up on a decade in business, How about some lessons learned in this fiber world as a business owner?
I see the fiber world as a very large sharing community, and I feel that it's a haven for someone to go to and find their inner peace. And you're always self-entertained if you have fiber in your hands. And I have the philosophy in my store that knowledge is for sharing, because how can you pass along the passion for fiber if you're not passionate about it yourself, and you're excited to tell people how to do this, how to do that. Let's design this. You want this shape? Let's figure out how to make this shape. You know, always be open to, you can always rip it out.
A few minutes ago you described how getting to this place where you are has been sort of an evolutionary process from the other side, from experiencing the shop, as I have done so many times. You know, to me, this is kind of this is a real destination for me.
Thank you.
Because the yarns that you have, the projects that you have, the pieces you have for sale, you know, I just really appealing. They stimulate creativity when I see them. Was that the experience that you hoped for with your customers? Was that something you were seeking, or you just kind of,
You know, I
it
love
evolved?
to talk to people, and it's so wonderful to hear their stories and what they're doing, and what do they enjoy the most, and what's their wheel of choice, what is their knitting of choice, if it's socks or, you know, shawls or cardigans or, you know, baby clothes. I'm a people person, so, you know, because Sarasota seems to be a place that a lot of people vacation to, you meet the most interesting people, and you meet people that know somebody that you knew from your past. I mean, it reminds you every day what a small world it is. And I'm so grateful that in this time of my life that I can have my shop. And I've never been happier, and I've never been more at peace because of the fiber. Between the knitting and the spinning, I'm really happy. I'm very content. You know, I have this calm in my life. And I really like that.
So what's the vision for the future for the shop?
I just want to just be able to always be able to enjoy coming in here. And I always want to learn something new every day. Because if you don't learn something, then it could get boring, but I don't see how it can. There's always something, there's always, and fiber. Every time you pick up a different fiber, it's a whole nother experience, and to learn how that was put together and to feel it, it's really cool.
Let's talk about Deborah, the fiber artist. I love the design work you do in terms of using hand-spun yarns. Where do your ideas come from?
A yarn might have to hang from the ceiling for, you know, a month or 2 or 6 months, or maybe only 6 hours, and I look at it and something draws me to it, and I pick up the needles. I find which needle works with the yarn, and I start. Usually when I start with something and I think, okay, I'm going to make a rectangular shawl, that rectangular shawl ends up turning into a coat. Or I never ever seem to end up with what I thought I was making in the beginning, because the yarn tells me where to go, and the design just kind of comes out, and so then you make your adjustments and it's a journey. I don't know how else. Free form is such a journey, and if you go, I've never been able to successfully start the journey with what I originally was going to make, because I always find it taking me someplace else, and I can't use just one yarn. I love to use 10, 20, 30 yarns, because I just like it to change and just flow from one texture to one color.
So your design process sounds like it's more driven from the yarn. You don't walk around saying, gee, I'd like to make this kind of a hat or this kind of a bag. Let me find something. It's more, I have this yarn. Let me think about it. what's it want to be.
Exactly. And then if I do say, oh, I want to make a hat out of this, that hat usually turns into a purse. And then I have to go the journey for the hat because it wasn't going where I wanted it to go when I started it. So it usually takes, if I'm going, I have one goal, it takes me 2 or 3 pieces to get to that goal because that yarn's gone into a different path.
So what's the current vision for yourself as an artist?
I would love to travel, and traveling is, you get to visit all these people that have fleeces and farms, and you could go out there and see what everyone else is doing, and it's so, the whole world is like, it feels like an oyster just waiting to be discovered, and there's so much inspiration that you can find in driving through the mountains and just looking at the mountains, or going, my favorite thing to do every week is to go to Lido Beach. I sit at the beach at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I leave at 10 when all the screaming kids show up. And I've been out there, it's peaceful, it's quiet, and I hear the water coming in and the waves and the birds, and it gives me this calmness that I can go home and just fall into the fiber and fall, you know, do what I want to, just knit.
Being a shop owner, handling a lot of commercial yarns, being a spinner, buying and using hand-spun yarns, what's your feeling about the whole? Is it art? Is it craft? Is it form? Is it substance? Is it style? You know, where do you fall on that continuum?
I totally believe that knitting and spinning is an art form. It's not your grandmother's knitting. And I have this, it's, my daughters will tell you that I have no sense of fashion and I know nothing about the fashion industry, but I seem to, I love art to wear, and I love making pieces that somebody can wear and people go, wow. And I found that wow for the first time when I started making my bags with the hand spun. And it's like you're walking around with the sheep. I mean, you know, the hand spun brings out the natural qualities of the sheep, the curls, the waves, the silkiness, the softness, the feel. And then when you add all the other embellishments to it, you've made a one-of-a-kind piece. And that's how I feel about knitting and spinning, is you're always making something that is one of a kind, and it's beautiful, and it's textural, and you want to touch it, you know.
They are. Your bags are beautiful, and I've never seen one of them I didn't want to buy. What is, just a couple things and we'll wrap up. What's your wish for the indie fiber community?
I can go back to going to California in August and going to Lexi's place for the first time and experience the first Yarnival, and I met the most amazing people that are already in the industry, and the talent, and everybody's so smart in their own right, and their talent is so amazing that it would be great if we could all just be in this community where we can share and enjoy and feed off of each other's excitement for the love of fiber, because it is I think it's a revolution. It's a phenomenally amazing experience, and when people come into my store and they think they're walking into an antique shop, because I am in the antique district, and they look at this fiber and they're not knitters, they're not spinners, they're not crocheters. They just stand here and they just go, oh my God, I had no idea that this is what a yarn store could look like. And I'm like, well, you know, it's more of a boutique, more of a fiber boutique, which was not my goal. It just kind of went in that direction all on its own. And people stand here and they're just amazed that people are spinning and they're using locks, and they watch us pull the fleeces apart, and they're just mesmerized by the whole process. And then seeing something knitted in a commercial yarn that you can wrap your baby up in and have a photograph of your baby that is a keepsake, and then that piece can go into a trunk, and the next baby in the family that's born can be wrapped up in that piece and have a photograph taken, and it just looks so natural, you know, that a baby's wrapped up in fiber.
That's awesome, Deb. So, if you have nothing on your to-do list, if you had a day actually like that, what would you do?
I would go to the beach in the morning, and then I would go home and get on my spinning wheel, or grab my knitting needles and knit. That's what I like to do. That's my zen. That's my place that I like to go.
Well, we can relate.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thanks for everything. Thanks for having us. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
And we'll catch up with you soon, okay? All right, bye.